I had originally written a piece and even recorded and nearly finished editing a video on the myth of objectivity in academia and journalism. It is something that I have thought about even before I began properly studying media and journalism, reading books like Manufacturing Consent by Herman Chomsky, and engaging with more independent and less mainstream news outlets. While I was still drawing what I'd written previously, a day after having editing issues, I started reading Information at War by Philip Sieb. And what he includes about objectivity in journalism, in his words in quoting others, illustrates my thoughts much better than I already had. To begin with my initial discussion of academia, I wrote an essay for university last year entitled Everything to Fear, Data and Privacy in the Digital Era, which I have also recorded for YouTube now as well. It was a certified banger apparently. It got a high distinction grade, just, and the feedback was immense, with the grader writing, "Overall, this is a brilliant piece of writing in defense of privacy. If you don't mind, I would call it a short manifesto for privacy in the digital age." I'm flattered, but despite this, further down they added another note that seems to derail it slightly. Having read my pieces throughout the unit, they said you often take a side and defend it vigorously. This is what academics with integrity and courage do. However. It is this, however, that I wish to address here, not just because it was mildly amusing, but because it also probes a deeper question about objectivity. The rest of the above sentence continued as follows. Sometimes it is worth trying to be more balanced. A manifesto for privacy, a writer with integrity and courage, but be more balanced. Now, I get the reasoning provided. That balance can add more depth and sophistication to the thinking and writing of essays. That is a fair point, to an extent. But for me, the purpose of what I write, particularly essays like that one, is making an argument for something I believe, and providing the evidence and drawing out the implications as I see them to back it up. I have and do engage with the arguments and ideas that I disagree with or that provide a different perspective, and that does indeed reshape and strengthen my own convictions and arguments. I've read and collated the viewpoints, now here is mine and the reasoning for it. For instance, in the data and privacy essay, I do cite people and articles I disagree with and explain why I disagree with them. There's a small section where I quote Molitorus discussing the legitimacy of state surveillance over that of a criminal hacker, or the bit where I talk about the commodification of privacy from a business perspective. I could frame the essay as though I were a mediator in an academic debate of sorts, but that loses the thrust of the argument and for me would feel intellectually dishonest. I do have rather strong convictions and opinions on a number of topics, and while it might be more balanced to go, well, I guess both sides make a point, what happens to the aforementioned integrity? I don't want to mislead readers and listeners about where I stand, and while I could probably do a convincing job of it, rhetoric is simply an art, I have no particular interest in positing and defending a pro-state or pro-capitalist argument here. People deserve that level of transparency from those whose words they listen to or read, and I have little truck with anyone who claims to be truly objective in fields like academia or journalism. Personal and societal biases exist, and in many cases, what is claimed to be objectivity often takes a side implicitly. This is where Sieb's book comes in, because he cites a number of examples of journalists involved in reporting the Bosnian War, considering that very topic in the context of genocide and war. Quite prescient today. Sieb quotes journalist David Reef, who reported on the war. I do not think that we had the obligation to be objective about the Bosnian War any more than a journalist in 1940 would have had the obligation to be objective about the Second World War. One would hope that had a reporter managed to get into the Warsaw Ghetto, he or she would not have written a piece that tries to present the German and the Jewish points of view as if they were morally of equal weight. Martin Bell discusses the idea of journalism of attachment, and in 2017, when he looked back on the backlash he had received for the mortal sin of taking sides, he said it was to not stand neutrally between the victim and the aggressor. Writing in 1996, Christiana Manpaul, who reported for CNN, perhaps put it closest to how I also view the issue. I have come to believe that objectivity means giving all sides a fair hearing, but not treating all sides equally. Once you treat all sides the same, in such a case as Bosnia, you are drawing a moral equivalence between victim and aggressor, and from there it is a short step towards being neutral, and from there it's an even shorter step to becoming an accessory to all manner of evil. in Bosnia's case, genocide. So objectivity must go hand in hand with morality. This notion of objectivity, but not neutrality, I believe, is an important distinction and position for journalists and even academics to hold. We are first and foremost humans, moral and social creatures. I have written about a number of contemporary topics where I believe I have followed this example. For instance, neutrality in the case of global warming is dangerous, giving equal weight to the arguments of the scientific consensus and those of denialists, or worse, directly supporting the denialist side, as some outlets do for commercial purposes, is not objective. When we are facing an average global temperature increase of up to 5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century, this faux balance is deadly for hundreds of millions, if not billions, of people. As we see another genocide take place in real time against the Palestinians, Amanpour's words resonate strongly. If we play the game, Israel is objectively a monstrous regime, so why is this not reflected in the mainstream Western press as a moral outrage? Why do all media outlets and governments remain muted, or even in support of a settler colonial state's butchering of almost 31,000 Palestinians, many of whom are children, and not supporting South Africa's case in the International Court of Justice? Nicaragua has even started proceedings against the UK, Germany, the Netherlands, and Canada, and until recently the only outlet at the time of writing that I was aware of that had reported this was the Hezbollah-aligned Al Mayadeen in Lebanon, which I only know because it was shared over Twitter. If people wish to call out my convictions and opinions as biases in my writing, then that's fine. I would rather them be known and defend why I hold them with integrity, rather than behind some imagined conception of balance. The rationales provided by institutions of state and capital for the collection of our data and surveillance of our lives do not convince me, and the liberties of individuals and communities is paramount in my mind. Global warming is alarmingly real, and not getting the increasingly urgent warnings and data out to those who will be affected, i.e. everyone, does not magically make it go away or change governmental policy. Israel's right to defend itself is dramatically overshadowed by the slaughter and misery it has yet again unleashed against the Palestinian people. In my writing, whether academic, journalistic, or otherwise, I will have considered it a failure if I do not hold to these truths and convictions, and an even deeper failure as a human at the expense of the people behind these words. So do you have any thoughts on this? Would you like more journalists and public figures to be upfront and honest about their biases? Do you think many are even aware that they hold them? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you liked this video, feel free to give it a like and share it. Have a good day, everyone.